Hello, my dearies. Just a quick little statistic reminder that this applies to every single statistic you will ever calculate ever in your lifetime. The null hypothesis always says no difference, none whatsoever. The alternate hypothesis, sometimes called hypothesis 1, that means there is a difference. Sometimes it's a greater than or less than, but it means there is a difference and it's not just random chance. So when you calculate your critical value, when you get your critical value, whatever it may be, if your statistic is less than your critical value, you are here in this area, and the fail to reject the null, or as we're using it in class, retain the null. If your statistic is lower than, then you retain the null and say there is no difference. If your test statistic is bigger than, greater than your critical, so the number is bigger, you're up here in the reject area. Therefore, you reject the null hypothesis, which means that, nope, even though the prediction is no difference, I am rejecting that and I am saying there is a difference. So if your critical value is higher than, if your statistic is higher than your critical value, you reject the null and you say, yeah, there is something going on. Exactly what? It could be directional, like this here. This is a one-tail test that clearly would be directional. It could just be that there's a difference, but there is that presumption. So you would say, I reject the null, and there is an apparent difference between this and this, or this is greater than that, or this is less than that. However you want to phrase it, but there is a difference. You cannot retain the null and say there's a difference. Those are mutually exclusive. Statistically significant means you reject it. So if you have rejected because your calculated statistic is higher than your critical value, then you have to say it is statistically significant and there is a difference. You cannot say it is statistically significant and I'm keeping the null. Those are mutually exclusive, just like it's mutually exclusive to retain the null and say it's significant. You can't. You can't say I'm retaining the null and there's a difference. No, those are mutually exclusive. You can't say I am rejecting the null, but there is no difference. Mutually exclusive. Okay, so that critical value, higher, reject the null. Critical value and your score is lower than the critical value, then you reject the null. Critical value does not change. Your calculation is what determines which side of that cutoff point it is, okay? Keep that in mind, my statistics theories.